India and the European Union will announce a long-awaited free trade agreement. In fact, EU chief Ursula is at Raj Ghat at this point, paying tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. Let's go straight across to Aditya. Aditya, of course, these are visuals of EU chief paying tribute at Raj Ghat, and very importantly, the long-awaited free trade agreement, which is being called the mother of all deals, has been finalized and it will be announced very soon.
Well, that's right. These are live visuals coming on your screen of the EU leadership at the Raj Ghat. The entire tribute ceremony taking place, which is a ritual for any foreign dignitary who arrives in New Delhi. And this is just minutes ahead of the historic summit that will begin between European Union and India at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi, where the delegation-level talks will happen between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the EU leadership. And shortly after that will be the signing of the agreement, which is a historic FTA between European Union and India. It will, of course, reduce the trade barriers and create a kind of connectivity and rapport between India and EU when it comes to trade and commerce. But at the same time, security and defense will be an integral part of the overall, relations between India and EU. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and Kaja Kallas, who is the High Representative for the European Union for security policy and foreign policy, will also be signing a very important, agreement between the two countries on defense and trade ties. And, of course, we are waiting for the big handshake that will take place in a few minutes from now between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and, of course, the EU leadership. Of course, these are visuals from the Raj Ghat, but later in the day, after the historic signing of the agreement, we'll see press statements taking place where the top leaders from EU and India will come and speak to the media about the kind of relations that have been built between the two countries, the 2 decades-long strategic partnership, how it is being taken to another level. This, of course, comes at the backdrop of the global tariff policy of the Trump, and Washington, D.C. will be watching this very, very closely. And, of course, through the day, we'll also see business summit, which will be addressed by the EU leadership and Prime Minister Modi later part of the day. So a very historic day for the ties of India and EU, and NDTV obviously will keep the viewers ahead on the latest developments. We are waiting at the Hyderabad House, where any minute the EU delegation will be visiting, and we'll see the big handshake moment between the two leaders from India and EU.
Right, Aditya, big development indeed. Negotiations, as you pointed out, began sometime in 2007, relaunched in 2022 after a long pause. So we are talking about negotiations that began nearly 2 decades ago and some finality there. Take us through, the details as far as the agreement is concerned. We believe that it could include tariff cuts on nearly 90% of goods. So there could be a major breakthrough as far as bilateral trade is concerned in several sectors.
Well, that's right. Both sides have called this the mother of all deals. In fact, recently at Davos, we had the EU Commission President Ursula speaking in detail how European Union is looking forward to the India visit and striking that important critical deal with India. And of course, this morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, addressing the Energy Week, also stressed on how India-EU commerce will benefit from this FTA that is being called the mother of all deals. So both the leadership from India and EU are very excited and eager. It will obviously help people-to-people connectivity, trade, commerce between these nations. And you rightly pointed out, it's been 2 decades of negotiations that have seen various twists and turns. There have been roadblocks in the midway as well. But finally, after Prime Minister Narendra Modi came in, there was a push that was given to the trade talks. And the final nail for this trade deal was obviously the global tariffs policy of Donald Trump that created chaos all across the world, with the tariffs being slapped on several countries, including India. Now, even though there's been no finality in the India-US trade deal that is still under negotiation, EU and India have been pushed together thanks to Donald Trump's global tariff policy. And any moment now, in the next 2 hours, we'll see the signing of the historic India-EU trade deal, the FTA, that has been talked about over the last many weeks. And finally, we'll see both these leaders speak in detail about how 90% of tariffs will be reduced. This is certainly not a time of barrier being imposed on the commerce between these nations. And this will bring a lot of these European countries, nearly 27 of them, close to India. I've been speaking to a lot of European envoys who are in New Delhi, who are very excited with the visit because people-to-people contact has been strong between India and EU. the relations begin back in 1962. But now with this particular deal, the trade will reach another level, which will help boost economy not just in these nations, but globally. It will send a message of positivity into commerce and trade.
All right. Thank you, Aditya, for getting us those details. We also have live shots of Prime Minister Modi with the EU chief. It is a historic day as far as India-EU connections are concerned. India-European Union to announce a long-awaited free trade agreement very shortly. Formal signing to happen. Just a while ago, Prime Minister Modi called this trade the mother of all deals, this deal as the mother of all deals after concluding negotiations that began nearly 2 decades ago. Those are the visuals earlier of EU chief at Raj Ghat paying tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. Just now we saw the handshaking happening with Prime Minister Modi as well. A formal announcement of the deal and the details of that will be out soon. The agreement expected to include tariff cuts on nearly 90% of goods. This is going to mark a major breakthrough in bilateral trade. European Commission President there in India with a high-level delegation. She has been saying that Europe and India are working closely together, adding that the deal will take India-Europe ties to new heights and that both sides are committed to shaping a new global order. Prime Minister Modi also just earlier today welcoming the EU leadership. Those are the pictures, live visuals there of Prime Minister Modi with the EU chief and the delegation there welcoming, of course, he welcomed the EU leadership yesterday, said he was privileged to host the EU chief as well as the president of the European Council, who he is meeting with once again. Prime Minister Modi also emphasizing that this visit reflects the growing strength of India-EU relations and will also give fresh momentum to sectoral cooperation between India and European Union. So EU seeking access to Indian markets. This is going to be historic, no doubt. Agreement is expected to include tariff cuts on nearly 90% of the goods. So those are the details we are picking up as far as the historic deal is concerned, which the Prime Minister himself called as the mother of all deals. In fact, this is a major breakthrough as far as bilateral trade is concerned, something, a discussion that had started almost 2 decades ago. So it is historic. India-European Union all set to announce a long-awaited free trade agreement, which is being called the mother of all deals, and a momentous occasion today as far as India and Europe is concerned.
Thank you, Radhika. These are live visuals coming in from the Hyderabad House, where, like Radhika pointed out, the mother of all deals will be inked in moments from now. Joining me live is Aditya Raj Kaul from the Hyderabad House. What you're seeing are live visuals, and India and the European Union will announce a long-awaited free trade agreement. It's being called the mother of all deals after concluding negotiations that began at least 2 decades ago. What you're seeing on your screens, European Commission President Ursula is there with Prime Minister Narendra Modi before they walk into that room where they will be talking business. Aditya Raj Kaul live with me. Aditya, this is historic at many levels. Take us through why exactly today is an important day after 2 decades of talks between the two parties here.
Well, yes, these are live visuals coming on your screen from Hyderabad House, where the historic trade agreement between India and European Union would be, in fact, signed. And of course, we'll see a lot of color, a lot of details coming out in the press statements when the EU and the India leaders will be coming out in a few minutes from now. But the big handshake moment is taking place at the Hyderabad House, right meters behind me where I'm standing right now. And NDTV can confirm that in the next couple of hours, the trade deal which we signed between New Delhi and Brussels. This is a historic, momentous occasion that comes but rare. But after 2 decades of hectic negotiations and various twists and turns, we are seeing this historic handshake taking place. Of course, the top leadership of European Union and India has spoken in detail about how this historic, momentous, giant trade deal will help people from both these countries, especially business houses, especially when it comes to trade and commerce, but also security policy and defense would be an integral part of the overall build-up and the relations between these countries. So while we may see the FTA being signed, we'll also see agreements on defense and security cooperation taken to another level between EU and India. So in a few minutes from now, the summit-level delegation talks will begin at the Hyderabad House between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Ursula, the President of the European Commission, and of course the European Council President Antonio Costa. And of course, around 1 p.m. this afternoon, both these leaders will come out and address the media on the details of the FTA and how this is going to be mutually beneficial for both these countries. And after that, we'll see this leadership of EU-India coming out and speaking to a business summit at Bharat Mandapam, where top executives and CEOs of both these countries will be there.
Aditya, before we talk about the business that they're going to get down to in moments from now, let's also talk about the body language that we're seeing on our screens. Like you pointed out, you have the European Commission President there, you have Antonio Costa there and Narendra Modi. Just that one moment on our screens right now, the ease with which they're around each other, this really talks and indicates to the fact that these talks are now about trade power between the countries.
Absolutely. This is a new level of comfort and connectivity when it comes to trade and commerce between these countries. Of course, trade has been a subject matter of discussion over the last 1 year with the tariff policy being discussed between various countries, and all the countries looking towards India for trade and commerce. In the last 1 year alone, there have been 6 to 7 FTAs that India has signed, from New Zealand to Oman to, in fact, now the European Union. Of course, India and Canada will begin their trade talks, CEPA, yet again between Feb and March this year, and that is going to be significant as well. But at this moment, India and European Union clinching a historic deal. The body language of both these leaders has been very positive. In fact, they've been sharing their moments through photographs and reels on the social media, where the EU leadership was the chief guest at the Republic Day that happened yesterday. A lot of color, a lot of vigor, and a lot of commitment being seen in the visuals since yesterday. And now the summit-level delegations beginning at the Hyderabad House, where both these leaders have arrived. The big handshake moment has happened, and the summit-level discussion will begin shortly. The nitty-gritties have been finalized, and in the next 2 hours, the FTA would be signed as well.
All right, so the European Commission President has been in India for 4 days. Big takeaways from this summit that we will bring to you. The summit is expected to mark a major milestone in bilateral relations, with officials set to announce the conclusion of negotiations on the long-awaited India-EU free trade agreement, described by officials as the mother of all trades. Leaving you with those visuals, slipping to short break. This, of course, will be our top focus through the afternoon. We'll bring you all the big takeaways from what's happening inside that room at Hyderabad House in the national capital.